So this is my second anthology with Bane, and it's a reprint anthology. These used to be much more common, and God willing, they'll become common again, because this used to be how the classic stories and even the obscure ones would circulate, find new readership, and that we've lost that as something approaching a tragedy for literacy and society as a whole. But back on to what it was. This was an education as a young editor. I learned how to deal with agents, author estates, and the godforsaken number of minefields that pop up dealing with reprinting classic fiction. Because people have no idea just how much labor and work goes into chasing down those estates, to getting the contracts right, waiting for signatures, waiting for contracts. There is so much that goes into it. And it's also educational for me because I learned that you can do everything right and still fail. I'll give you two examples when it came to there. The first is that when we had the premise, sci-fi stories of aliens secretly living on Earth, and I immediately thought of the first story I knew I would move heaven and earth to get in this anthology. 8 o'clock in the morning by Ray Nelson. I'd be surprised if any of your listeners have ever heard of it before, which is a shame and why I wanted to include it. The story itself is one of the most perfectly written action sci-fi stories ever written. Maybe less than 3,000 words. You can read it in a coffee break, and it pulls you in right from the get-go. You might, however, know it for a little movie by John Carpenter called They Live, which adapted it.
Wow.
And the other half is that Ray Nelson is the textbook journeyman sci-fi. He contributed a bunch of stories back in the 50s and 60s, then mostly quietly retired. He's mostly famous these days for inventing the propeller beanie cap. And I wrote to him. I told him how much the story meant to me. I told him about the anthology and how I couldn't picture doing it without this story. Would he be interested? And I got this wonderful letter back, accepting, complimenting me, welcoming me into the genre. I mailed the contract, and he was in his 90s, and he died before the contract arrived.
Man.
I did not get to include 8 o'clock in the morning in there here, and I lament its absence to this day. The second, we did, however, get a story from Neil Gaiman. And at the time, the thought was, okay, that second season of a certain TV show is about to come out. There'll be some cross-promotion potential. It'll be great for our sales. And instead, a particular different story about Neil Gaiman came out around the release. And it made They're Here about as popular at bookstores as Plague Dogs. So it's proof that you can play by the rules, do everything right, and still get sandbagged at the last minute, something you never saw coming.
Yep.
Sooner or later, everybody takes a beating in this business. That was mine. The key is learning from it, getting back up, and being just as relentless when you started. And despite it all, They're Here is still a damn fine anthology, and I recommend it highly to any curious.
Yeah, it sounded absolutely amazing. Both of those that's crazy. Yeah.
Behind-the-scenes stories I don't often get to share.
Yeah.
In the anthology are great. Like there's one about an alien sent to spy on Earth who instead has to fend off the romantic advances of a lusty divorcee. A story of a teacher, but Zena Henderson's The People stories, far too ignored these days. A teacher in a small southwestern town who finds out all the children in that town are descended from aliens that settled there in the 1800s.
Oh, wow.
And teaching them how to interact with the world again. We didn't just go for the aliens trying to eat humans or invade the Earth. We actually found a good variety. So, despite the painful learning experiences along the way, I'm proud that we put it together.